Hi, my name is Evan Archella, and I'd like to walk you through some tips and tricks for Microsoft Excel 2010. This demonstration is for those of you who are upgrading or migrating from Microsoft Excel 2003. And so what you're going to see within this demonstration is not only new features for Excel 2010, but also some things that you may have missed from the Excel 2007 release. We're going to look at this in a couple of different ways today. We're going to talk about, first of all, just getting started with the interface, give you a sense of kind of what's new there. Then we're going to dive into bringing your ideas to life. We're going to look at some ways to have more exciting spreadsheets, be able to do a little bit more beyond just the actual numbers within Excel. We're going to talk about working together more effectively, and we're going to talk about having anywhere access to your work. And we're going to look at something new in that section that we call Excel Web App. Excel Web App is a browser-based version of Excel. You'll see these for Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and OneNote, and they're available through Windows Live SkyDrive, through SharePoint, and also Office 365. So we'll look at that technology today as part of the demonstration. Let's go ahead and jump into the demonstration and give you a sense of just some of what this technology can do for you. We're going to start with just a look at the Excel 2010 interface. Across the top here you see the ribbon. This ribbon layout was introduced within the 2007 time frame, and it's organized really based on what it is that you're trying to achieve within the application. So all of the commands are grouped across a number of different tabs. You can see those here, and within those tabs are groups of commands and then commands relevant to that particular action. So if I was to want to insert something, for example, into the spreadsheet, I would click the Insert tab. If I want to work with my formulas and functions, there's a Formulas tab. You'll also see on the Review tab things like your track changes, capabilities, comments. Your spell check is here as well on the Review tabs. You can start to think about this in terms of what it is that you're actually trying to do. Are you inserting something? Are you reviewing the spreadsheet for information? That will kind of guide you as to which of those tabs you want to go to. You'll also notice that as you select information, you'll be able to use different drop downs and things on those tabs. So these are cell styles, for example, and what you see here is an example of a gallery. Gallery will show you visually what some of the commands will do for you within the context of the spreadsheet. This is a cell styles command. You'll notice here also, if I just kind of hover over these different options within this, I get what's basically a live preview of these different options within the context of my document. So I don't have to go through the trial and error of applying a change and having to undo it. I can see as I go through the gallery exactly what I'm going to get on the other side. So once I find something that I like, I can just simply click it and apply that change to the spreadsheet itself. You'll also notice I have a chart here. If I click on this chart, I want to point out to you the Chart Tools tab here. This is what's called a contextual command tab, and this one here in particular is called the Shared Charting Engine. Design, Layout, and Format. These are the three tabs that come up as part of that tab, and the reason it's contextual is you don't see it unless you're actually ready to work with it. So when you click that chart, when you click a table, a shape or something to that effect, these things are going to bring up these contextual ribbon tabs so that you can start to work on those tools. If you don't need them for whatever reason, you can just simply click off of that element, and you'll notice that those tools tuck away again until the next time that you want to take advantage. It just helps to keep the interface very clean, that you're really focused on exactly what you're doing at any particular time. Now that Shared Charting Engine, those are the same chart tools now across all the Office applications. So if you were working on this chart within Excel or within Word or within PowerPoint, you're going to see the same tool set across all three of those applications. The ribbon, the tabs, we talked a little bit about. You'll also notice something called a dialog box launcher. It's these little diagonal arrows here at the bottom right corner of some of these groups. What that does is actually launches a dialog box. So if you're looking for a command that you haven't been able to find, you're not exactly sure where it might be, if you want to get back into that kind of dialog view of the interface, just simply hit that dialog box launcher. It'll bring up, you can see this is the font dialog box. It should look pretty familiar to you based on what you might have used in previous versions of Excel. You'll also notice up here right above the ribbon we call this the quick access toolbar. So things like undo and redo and save, those are going to be there, but you can also customize this. So you can see here I've added actually my spell check to this, so that's not there by default, but if you drop down this menu and just click on spelling, you'll be able to add that icon right there to the quick access toolbar, so you don't have to go to the review tab every time you want to work with that. And you'll also notice as you get more advanced with Excel 2010, you can also customize the ribbon and be able to create your own tabs and add your own favorite commands to the tabs that you create within the context of the ribbon. Also want to show you here on the File tab, if you click that, that will take you to what we call Backstage View. Backstage View is where you have all your spreadsheet management tasks here in kind of one place. The Info tab has some things related to permissions and sharing. We'll talk about that a little bit later. The New tab is where you can select new templates if you want to start a new document. And the Print tab is an interesting tab because not only does it give you your print options, but it also gives you a print preview on the right-hand side. So you can actually see how this is going to look on the printed page right from within this single interface. You'll also notice that you have a Help tab here. On the Help tab, I would encourage you, those of you that are coming up from 2003, this ribbon interface is new for you. You may want to click on Getting Started here and come out and learn a little bit more about Excel. You'll see the interactive ribbon guides. Those will walk you through the ribbons and help you to find where your favorite commands live within the new interface. You may also want to search for OpenXML. OpenXML. There's an article called XML Formats and File Extensions. That will take you to an article that will give you kind of the ins and outs of the new file format. So there was a file format change between 2003 and 2007, and it has continued on in 2010. It does have some benefits, but there are also some things you need to keep in mind in terms of compatibility and converting your older formats and things like that. And that information you can find within an article like this to give you a little bit more detail as to how that's going to work. Let's go back over to the spreadsheet. We've talked about the interface a little bit, the ribbon, the tabs, the contextual tabs, quick access toolbar, file tab for Backstage View. Let's look at some of the things you can actually do within the context of the spreadsheet. First thing I want to point out is my slider down here at the bottom right. I'm just going to slide this thing all the way out to 10% there. That's as far out as I can go. And I want you to see just how many rows and columns you can see here. I mean, my information is obviously unreadable in this type of view. But what I'm trying to show you here is that the capacity for Excel beginning in Excel 2007 was greatly increased. What you have here is now a grid that is over 1 million rows by over 16,000 columns. So it's 1,500% more rows and 6,300% more columns than you had in Office 2003. So from a capacity standpoint, making this move is going to give you some instant value right out of the box by giving you much more room to be able to store all of the information that you want to work with. Let's zoom back out here to 100%. I also want to show you a couple of features here that are interesting for you. Format as table. Next to cell styles here. This was a feature introduced a couple of versions back. They used to call it lists. In 2007, it was kind of renamed format as table. And it's a very useful feature because if you have a long list of information like I do here, I can use this to basically select a table style that I might want to work with. And I need to select my data. Need to also, if I have headers in that data, I need to make sure this box is checked. Click OK, and it creates for me a table. The nice thing about a table is it already has things like your filtering turned on, gives you the opportunity to do some other interesting things here as we kind of work through this table for the next few minutes. So let me go ahead and just click off that table. You'll see we have some table tools up here at the top. That's another example of a contextual command tab. Let's click the filter. So here's our product filter on this particular sheet. You can see I can sort this alphabetically by color. What I'm going to do here is actually clear out the different filters, and you'll notice this new search field here. So if you have a lot of different search characteristics here, different filtering criteria, you can actually search for things. So let's say I want to look for sauce, for example. I can search for the right filters. You notice here they're checked for me by default. When I hit OK, go ahead and filter on that data. So it's a much faster way to be able to get at the information you want to look for particularly in spreadsheets that have a lot of information in them. Would also like to show you up here the total row. So if you just check a box in the Table Tools tab, you'll see here that it automatically totals up the information, and I can go through each of the cells in the total row, and I can select from a drop down of kind of predefined functions here and be able to set what it is I'm actually trying to calculate within the context of that table. Let's see, let's go up here to the top. What I want to do is actually type total, and you'll notice as I add a new row here, or a new column in this case, when I hit tab, it automatically adds that to the formatting. So the table basically just grows with me as I work. I'm going to put a formula in here, and we're just going to total up the 4 quarters of information that we have here. And let's go ahead and just add that. So I've totaled that up. You notice a little smart tag pops up here, and I want to overwrite all the cells in this column with that same formula. So we'll just copy it straight down the table there. Let's also look at something we call conditional formatting. Not a new feature for Excel, but within the 2007 and 2010 releases it becomes much easier because you can now very graphically choose from conditional formatting. That means basically, as you look at all of these different numbers here, if I want to get a sense of kind of trends or what might be happening with this data, but I don't want to read all of these numbers, I'd like to just get a visual clue as to what might be happening. I can basically highlight cells that are greater than a certain amount or less than a certain amount, top 10%, for example. I also like these data bars because what you have here is if you just apply a data bar, you can see that it basically applies a green color, and that green color, the more green I have, you can tell the more the higher the number within that particular cell. The less green, the lower the number within that particular cell. So it's at a glance I can really see in terms of what we did in Q1 here, what are the higher numbers, what are the lower numbers. I don't have to read through it all because of that conditional formatting. Now, a new feature within Excel 2010, let's just come back over here and turn our filters back on. You'll have something we call Sparklines. This is new for 2010. Like conditional formatting, kind of gives you a sense of what's happening within that information. A Sparkline is kind of like a mini chart. So if I go over here to Insert, you'll see I have Sparklines, line, column, win, loss. Let's do a line Sparkline here, and I'm just going to select the data. And when I hit OK, you'll notice here I have kind of a little mini line chart that's reflecting what the information in those 4 cells is doing. You can see I had a little bit of growth, and I've dropped a little bit within that 4th quarter. So if I take this, drag it down to the other cells, you'll notice that I can get that spark line to give me a visual representation of what's happening within that data, and it's easier for me to analyze and make some decisions based on what might be going on with this information. Now, this is a table we've been working with, an Excel table, but you can, on the Insert tab, just take that and put it into what we call a pivot table. And if you've used pivot tables before, the interface for pivot tables has changed somewhat within Excel 2010 and 2007. Prior to that, in 2003, you have a number of different buttons on the main table here that you're kind of dragging around. Everything's been moved off to the task pane on the right-hand side to give you a very clean interface and a very clean way to work with information within the context of that pivot table. So, for example, if I go ahead and let's just turn on category and salesperson and total, you can see by checking or unchecking the fields within the task pane, they turn on or off within the context of that pivot table. Now down here, this is where you're going to do the dragging and dropping. So when you think about dragging around those buttons on your pivot table in the past, what I'm going to do here is just simply drag the category up to the report filter level, and you can see it's reflected here within the pivot table. And we can go ahead and just filter this down, for example, on beverages, and I can start to pivot out this information. So pivot tables do work similar to what you saw before, but the interface and how you actually do the pivoting is slightly different in this version. You need to get used to working with it within the context of that task pane. Pivot charts, you'll see a pivot chart up here at the top on the command tabs. If I click OK, you can see I can just plop that right into the context of the pivot table by bringing that in from the contextual command tab. Let's undo that actually, because I want to free up some space to show you something related to what we call SmartArt. So if you think about Excel, it's a lot about numbers. numbers, right? But it's often there's times where you can actually take and make something much more visual, help people to understand a little bit better as to what's happening, or other types of information that might be within the context of that spreadsheet. So in this case, we have a pivot table here that shows all of our salespeople and all of their totals, and maybe I'd like to get a sense of those salespeople. How are they organized by region? What's the organizational structure for our sales staff? Is that something that I could display within the context of a spreadsheet? Well, if I go to the Insert tab, let's click on SmartArt. SmartArt are diagrams. They're pre-configured for you. I'm going to go to Hierarchy here, and you can see we have a list that I'm going to select, and that will bring in for me a pre-configured diagram where all I have to do is just add the text that goes with it. So I'm going to go ahead and make this the West region, and let's just put in our salespeople for the West region. So we have Buchanan, we have Callahan. You notice it automatically expands as I add bullets here. We have Devolio, and I'll go ahead and start the East column here as well. So you can see I can begin to add these names. It's a diagram. It's not tied to my data, but it does enhance my data by helping me to understand, as I look at these reps and what they're doing, where they're organized across the country. If I come up to my Command tab here, I could make this more colorful. I could add a 3D effect to it. And let's just drag that and drop it right underneath the pivot table there as well. So you can begin to bring in other types of elements so that you can really start bringing those ideas to life in more than just the way that you work with your numbers within Excel. Another thing you might want to be interested in here is if I go back over to the sales report, if I go to page layout, you'll see something on the left called themes. Themes are pre-configured collections of colors, fonts, and effects, and they're office themes. So if you apply a theme here within Excel, you can go into Word and you can go to PowerPoint. You can apply the same theme in those applications as well. The advantage being that all of your documents will have a very consistent look and feel. So you can see by applying this theme, I've got a predefined color set, font set, effects. As I would click through my different charts or other things that might be in the document, I can go to Excel, go to a Word, go to PowerPoint, and have everything match exactly as it would here. And all of my documents have a very similar look and feel, and they all relate to each other. Now, I've made a lot of changes here, and we've done this before. You know, you go up, you go to close Excel, you're not thinking, and you hit Don't Save. And you've just closed out. Have you lost all those changes? Well, if we come back into the spreadsheet again, let's go over to the File tab. I want to show you under versions here. It says there's a version when I closed without saving. So depending on how often you set your autosave settings within your Excel options, like if you made it 5 minutes, Excel's going to autosave every 5 minutes. And if you were to close Excel without saving, you have the opportunity of restoring to that last autosave. So when you saved without closing, you can restore back. Now you notice my theme isn't applied here. That's because I was autosaving probably every 5 to 10 minutes. So you will lose a little bit of things that you had done within the context of that time, but you're not going to lose everything that you've been doing for the last 2 or 3 hours because of that autosave and because of the ability to then restore these versions up if you were to accidentally close that without saving. Maybe your machine crashed, maybe you were working on an online version, you somehow lost connectivity. You're going to be able to at least get back to where you were a few minutes ago. Now let's take this in a little bit different direction here. We've talked about the interface. We've talked about some of the things that you might want to do within your spreadsheet, like tables and pivot tables, bringing in SmartArt diagrams. Let's talk about working together more effectively. I'm going to click the File tab here, and I want to point out just a couple of things. First of all, the Check for Issues tab button here, what you'll see is Inspect Document, and the Inspect Document command will actually look at your file. And I talked about the file format change between 2003 and 2007 and then carried through to 2010. This will look at your file and say, okay, these features here, somebody on an older version may have trouble with. That will let you know. The check compatibility will let you know that you might want to downsave that. The Inspect Document, it doesn't check the compatibility. What it actually does is it looks through and it flags things like document properties, XML content, hidden text, things like that that might be in the document that you might not want going along with it when you share it. So Inspect Document, it'll look at that stuff, it'll give you the opportunity to strip it out, and then the Check Compatibility will measure this document against what somebody on the older format might actually see when they're looking at this document. You'll also notice on permissions, You have a protect workbook button here. You can encrypt your worksheet, protect your worksheet. A very simple way to do this is just mark something as final. When you mark something as final, it's basically marked as read-only, and if I come over here, you'll see I'm notified that it's marked as final, and I can choose to override that if I want to. So it's not a security feature. You're not protecting it with a password in this case. You're just limiting the editing, and it's very easy just to turn that capability off again. So you want to just be careful. It really is best for, like, accidental edits that you make, or you accidentally hit your keyboard, that kind of stuff. It just lets people know that that document is final, and you're not expecting any more changes to it. You may still want to protect things with passwords as well. Let's also look at another way to protect a document. If you go to Save and Send, you'll see Create PDF and XPS. When you create a PDF document, they're typically not editable unless somebody has the full version of Acrobat or something to be able to open up and edit PDFs. In most cases, what you do here, you can see I can publish this as a PDF. It just goes out, somebody has the reader, they can open it up, and it's not an editable version of the file, but it looks like it does in Excel. I've got all my formatting and everything in place. So you can take advantage of that from Excel without having to have any additional software installed to be able to do it. You can just simply save it directly from the spreadsheet itself. Okay, so let's kind of take this even a different direction. So if I go back to the File tab, back down to Save and Send, instead of a PDF, what I want to do here is save it to the web. So we're going to look at this from the context of anywhere access to your work. So how can I be productive with my spreadsheet when I'm not at my desk? Well, one way to do that would be to save it to the web or to save it to SharePoint. Now, saving to the web is going to put it out on what we call Windows Live SkyDrive, which is an online storage utility. That's primarily for consumers, but if you have a Windows Live ID and anyone can get one, you could have a SkyDrive account for your own personal use. Now, if your company is running SharePoint internally, SharePoint you can save out to a SharePoint library and be able to access within the context of an intranet scenario, be able to share that information. There's a number of benefits that come along with that. In either case, whether you save it to the web to SkyDrive or whether you save it to SharePoint, if you were to go out to those locations, you can access that document in what we call the Excel web app, and that's what you see here. The Excel web app is a browser-based version of Excel. As I mentioned, they're available for Word, for PowerPoint, and for OneNote. And you would go out to your file, for example, within the Windows Live SkyDrive, you would click it, it would take you into what we call the read mode of the web app, and that's what you see here. The read mode looks exactly like your spreadsheet would look if you were running it in Excel, but you're actually looking at it through the context of the browser. You do have a File tab, so you can see if I click on the File tab, I have some options that I can choose from, and I do have a Find feature here as well. So if I was looking for sauce, for example, I can find the next result here for hot pepper sauce, and I can be able to navigate that spreadsheet. Now, I can read it here, but I can also edit this spreadsheet within the context of the browser. So if I hit Edit, you'll see it takes me into the browser edit view. You can see here I have the ribbon just like I have in the Excel application itself. Now, you don't have as many tabs, you don't have as many commands here within the context of the browser, but you do have enough to be able to do some formatting, to be able to make changes directly within the context of the spreadsheet. So let me go ahead and just change out some information within one of those cells. So you can edit here, you can insert different items, be able to do some things within the context of the browser. What you also have here, and if you'll look down here at the bottom, you can see Sanjay Patel is now editing this workbook. Well, you have co-authoring available to you within the Excel web app. What that means is there are two of us now editing. I'm using Karen's account. Sanjay just logged in. We're both in the spreadsheet, and we're both working on it at the same time. And so the changes that we make will basically push back and forth and pretty close to real time. So as I click off of that, if you'll notice here, you can see that Sanjay is actually on his side making changes to those cells, updating that from another location. So we don't have to wait in line for this file. We can get into it and we can start working on it together very easily. Now, if I needed to do some things that I can't do within the context of the web app, I can always open the file in Excel. And if I click open in Excel, you'll see it'll take me back into Excel 2010. And what you see here is protected view. And protected view, you can see enable editing. All this does is it's telling you that the file you've opened is coming from an internet location, and you should just be careful about opening it. If this is something you trust, it's a source that you trust, you can go ahead and click enable editing, and you can begin to edit this file as you normally would. So protected view is just a layer of protection between you and a file that may be stored in an online location. Let's go back here to our slideshow for a second. What have we looked at today? So this was a very brief introduction for you to Excel 2010. As I mentioned, this is for those of you coming from Excel 2003. And so you're seeing some things new for the first time that were introduced in 2007. Things like the ribbon, the quick access toolbar, the Backstage view under the File tab, that's new for 2010. And we also looked at bringing your ideas to life. So not just numbers, but being able to do attractive formatting, be able to bring in things like diagrams and tables, other types of things to make that data come alive, to be able to really get as much out of that information as you can. We looked at working together more effectively, preparing your document for sharing. You have the document inspector, the compatibility checker, being able to save to PDF. And we also talked about the context of co-authoring on an Excel sheet that was actually saved to an online location like SkyDrive or a SharePoint site. And that was made possible through Excel web app, which gives you anywhere access to your work by hosting that spreadsheet within the context of your browser. So you can use that to be able to read, to edit, and to co-author on that information. If you're looking for some other information to get started, the Office Get Started page is a good place to go, office.microsoft.com/getting-started, as well as the Excel homepage and the Office homepage. You'll see office.microsoft.com/webapps for the Office web apps information if you'd like to learn more about that. And you do have a mobile version of Excel available to you on your Windows Phone 7, and office.microsoft.com/mobile can help you with information related to that and the other Office mobile apps. I hope this was a beneficial screencast for you. We have other resources out on the Office websites, and I thank you for your time.